Welcome to the show, Trent.
Thanks.
You're already a successful mountain climber, even though you're only 18. How did you get into mountain climbing?
Many people start climbing because they've watched a television documentary about an expedition up a mountain. And a good friend I climb with enjoyed reading the biography of a famous climber so much he wanted to have a go himself. My experience was more unusual, though. When I was 9, I started at a new school where there was an amazing artwork on the wall. It showed some snow-covered mountains, and I thought, I want to climb those.
You climbed your first big mountain when you were 10. How did you feel beforehand?
I was convinced I'd be really nervous before we set off because climbing can be dangerous, but the opposite was actually true, which I couldn't quite believe. I went with very experienced climbers who I had confidence in, and I knew they'd turn back if there was any sign of danger, rather than taking risks just to get to the top.
You decided to climb the highest peak on each of the 7 continents. Why was that?
My grandfather became ill, and I wanted to do something to help him. There wasn't much financial support for scientists trying to find a cure, so I asked people to sponsor me to climb the 7 peaks. All my relatives were delighted by my idea, including my grandfather, who's fine now, thankfully. I became the youngest person ever to climb them, though that wasn't my reason for doing it.
The first of the 7 peaks you climbed was Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. How was that?
Amazing. The group I was with were all adults. I'm not sure how much preparation they'd done because I seemed to be able to climb for longer than they could, although I was still only 14. I was worried they might start ignoring me because I was just a kid, although they never did. In fact, the only thing they were negative about was having to go home.
You've climbed the 7 highest peaks now. What do you find difficult about climbing really high mountains?
I've got used to having to spend a month or 2 in another country or continent. I think my family actually find that harder than me. You meet the occasional dangerous animal, like the rhinos we saw in the Himalayas, but they're generally easy to avoid. I've never been good at functioning on less than 8 hours rest a night, though. You never get anything like that on an expedition.
What's the food like on a typical expedition?
There isn't much variety. It's all dried food because that's light, so we can carry enough. You need a surprising amount to feed 10 or 12 team members. The thing you notice most is that high up a mountain, water boils at a much lower temperature, so you have to wait quite a while for anything to cook. I can't say it's my favorite food, but I still look forward to eating it after a few hard hours of climbing.
Is there an essential quality that every good climber should have?
There are loads, and your life depends on them. Something you must have if you want to lead a group of people on an expedition is the ability to wait for the right moment rather than rushing things. What's vital for all climbers, though, is being mentally tough enough to get up or down even the most difficult mountain.
You've climbed many of the world's highest mountains now. What's next?
Eventually, I can imagine doing scientific research somewhere like Antarctica, which I loved when I went there. It was so cold and beautiful. I'd need to get a degree in a relevant subject before I could do that, though, which I might start doing after I've done some sessions with students in local schools. The aim of those is to encourage students to become more physically active.
Many thanks, Trent, and good luck.